allow me perhaps to introduce today's session and today's presenters. It will be myself. My name is Igor. For some of you who know me or who have met us or participated in our previous China webinars, I'm the Chief Operations Officer of BONARD. I'm technically also the CEO of our China branch office in Tianjin. And I'm glad that I can welcome today my co-presenter, who will be Grace. Grace is our newly appointed China branch manager. However, Grace, welcome, Grace. You can say something just so we know that you are here with us and your audio is working.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Hello, everyone. I hope that you can hear me well.
We can't hear you yet, but hopefully this will work. So Grace has been with us for roughly 7 years already. She has been part of our initial establishment in China, and over the years she has grown quite experienced managing our clients' projects, initiatives in the market. And today she will be here to co-share some of the market intelligence about the Asian market that we are going to present. This will be a co-presentation, and from our side, the topic will be the China-Asian market webinar in the China-Asian market in 2021. And this comes as a third annual update since 2019. So we have run this annual webinar series already for 3 years, and too much industry demand and sort of request for transparent, reliable market intelligence. This basically will make it the third annual release, and we look forward to share some new insights that we have collected again over the year operating and working and assisting educators in China. However, with slightly new format, we as researchers like to innovate and always find new creative ways how to present our data. And therefore this year we decided to focus not entirely on the whole market, but on selected number of cities, and perhaps dive deeper and show you new perspectives, how you can evaluate where to focus your efforts in China in post-COVID times, as the market will reopen both inbound to revisit your partners and make new partners, but outbound, most importantly, to receive Chinese students from the biggest source market in the world. So hopefully some of this intel will prove practical in your plans, how to reconnect and approach the market again. Before we start, I will just quickly introduce a little bit about ourselves. So in the past 13 years, BONARD has become the industry address for independent market research and intelligence when it comes to international education and student housing. We advise and assist governments, agencies, in international, country, provincial level associations, state consortia, study clusters, universities, high schools, language schools, service providers, student housing operators. So all walks of clients, and we help them to formulate and execute their international recruitment strategies in around 90 source markets around the world, through individual or group format trade missions, virtual platforms in COVID and possibly in post-COVID times, as virtual format is most likely to stay to some extent. We help them to source local talent, such as in-country representatives in various markets, and we help them to power their digital marketing strategies and channels around the markets. We are quite flexible in our approach and solutions, and therefore I encourage everybody who participates in today's session to feel free to step forward and speak with us and our colleagues who are either on the ground in China or in our European or Latin American offices, and to help you formulate your objectives in the source markets. Moving on and starting with methodology slide, allow us to spend a few minutes, a few precious minutes on the methodology, as this will set certain foundation and framework for the research and the intelligence that we are about to share. So when it comes to the methodology, this research has originated already since 2007, when we established in China. And when we, as a consultancy, faced the problem or the challenge in the market that there was no quality, unified, in-depth, and comprehensive sort of source of agency data and intelligence. After initial years, we decided to solve this challenge and to become the address for this kind of agency data. And therefore, over the years, we have accumulated a great number of agency source records and information. And you can see a screenshot of our sort of agency database on China, which currently features over 5,000 records. And those are agencies that are both active or have been recently active and perhaps no longer active, either temporarily or fully, so that we know who is still relevant and who is active to engage with. And we monitor these agencies across 119 cities in China. So tier 1 cities, new tier 1 cities, tier 2, tier 3, which encompasses basically the whole of the China market. To date, we have come to believe and understand that our agent database in China is probably the most comprehensive and most granular and in-depth when it comes to agency records in the market. So that's where we draw our research, our conclusions, and how we also assist some educators either to understand the agents or to introduce them to certain partners. Moving on with sort of the limitation of this particular research that we have done this year. As I mentioned, our focus was to select a key selection of top 10 cities, the so-called new tier 1 cities, according to the most recent nomenclature. And we consider them sort of the main hubs for when it comes to further international education development in China, as well as cooperation. So we used reference materials that already exist in the market. You can see that First Financial Weekly, which is sort of equivalent of Financial Times in China, every year publishes a city benchmark report on the top 15 most developed new tier 1 cities, according to criteria such as business resource concentration, urban hub style, level of residential activity, certain diversity of lifestyle in those cities, as well as future development potential. We have enhanced these metrics also through sort of economic performance, GDP, demographics, as well as factoring in existing agent markets or agent clusters in and around these cities. And based on that, we have made our top 10 selection out of this top 15 list that is being annually published. 7 researchers worked on this research basically since December until May 2021, screening all kinds of governmental and non-governmental resources, social media, search engines, company registers. We geolocated it on particular cities. We have created a sample of 1,400 active agencies that we have reached out, that have been verified and updated through the process, where we sourced most of this data that you're about to see. We have done over 4,000 phone calls in order to confirm that these agencies are still active, relevant, and invested in study abroad. And this came to the culmination of the research that we are excited to share today. So without further delay, let me dive into it, and let me start with demographics first. So we will go from macro to more micro kind of KPIs. When it comes to demographics, you can see, and before I continue, there is a first poll question that we would like to ask. and we encourage everybody to vote on so that we can get a perspective from the audience. And the poll question is, in the next 6 months, how do you intend to stay in touch with your partners in China? Virtually, in person, or both, considering that at some point the borders are hopefully going to reopen. So feel free to vote, and we will publish the results soon. Now, when it comes to the demographics, we selected this selection of cities and provinces for one particular reason, and that is the scope of the population and its segmentation. So there is over 880 million people that are concentrated across these 10 cities and their provinces, which accounts to roughly 60% of China's total population. So the bulk of population is there. There is a lot of young population. So you can see on the right-hand chart, the red line basically delimitates the number of population that are 14 or younger, and then the rest up to the retirement age. So that's basically the population segments as the Bureau of Statistics is measuring them. And in addition, we have looked at the educational level of population. And what we have found is that over the past decade, there has been a roughly 13% increase in literacy or in level of completed education. So now there are 385 million people in these cities that have completed a certain form of high school education, and many of them moved on to post-secondary, tertiary education. So not only there is a sizable population in these cities and provinces, most of China's population, but almost 50% of that population is a potential target audience when it comes to their level of education completion, their literacy, as well as level of their income, which we will soon see in the subsequent slides. So when it comes to economics, we took a look at the GDP. We measured how was the GDP performance and the benchmark of these of the cities, so not provinces but cities specifically that we chose, and how it compared against the sort of aggregate China's average GDP on a year-to-year basis. What you will see from the visual side of the chart is that the trend is a slight decrease. It doesn't mean that the GDP is on a negative or inverted curve, but it is slowing down. So the cities are coming of age, they're maturing economically, and that is standard that the GDP deaccelerates to a certain extent, however maintains an average rate of growth in line with economy average. You can see that some cities performed strongly in the earlier years and have somewhat decelerated, such as Chongqing. Other cities, such as Hangzhou, have maintained a very steady, albeit year by year somewhat slower pace. Other cities, such as Shenyang, have started slower, however, have accelerated in the recent years. And that means that these cities are still in various stages of their economic life cycle, and some have matured, some are maturing, and some are going to mature in the future. So GDP is always a viable indicator when considering where to concentrate the efforts. On the right-hand side, you can see the purchasing power of individuals in respective cities. So what you can probably notice that people in Hangzhou have higher purchasing power as compared to people in Shenyang or Zhengzhou. They are followed by Nanjing and Chengdu. So those are probably the most three standout cities when it comes to purchasing power. And this is similar to the average monthly income level distribution that you can see below, where are certain income segments that are indicated by a different color, and the proportion of the city's population that are within that income segment. So again, you will see that people from Hangzhou, Nanjing, Chengdu. They have the largest proportion of population that earns above $1,500 per month per individual. And that already signifies a stronger purchasing power with means to afford study abroad for their children. So when we combine this macro data, knowing that there is 880 million people in these provinces, there is roughly 400 million people that are well educated, and there is roughly, on average, let's say 10% of population in these cities that have means to afford study abroad. We are looking at a potential market size of 30 million people only in these 10 cities and surrounding provinces to focus on when it comes to study abroad opportunities, and that's no small market size. Moving on to quick, and before we proceed, we will post the poll results. So we have the vote results from the first poll, and it says that 59% audiences are going or plan to engage with their partners in China virtually. Roughly 4%, only 4% plan to do it in person, and 37% to leverage both ways of engaging with partners in China. So it seems that most of the interaction will be still conducted mainly virtually in the next 6 months. A quick comment on the COVID situation, just to give an idea where these cities are in terms of dealing with COVID. So as we know, there were roughly 90,000 official accumulated cases in China. Out of them, some less than 300 cases are still sort of existing, and 85,000 have been cured, and there were 4,600 people that have deceased. When it comes to city by city comparison, obviously Wuhan being the epicenter of the epidemic, it would be a standout metric of the chart, so we decided to use it as a reference material. But what we can see that outside of Wuhan, the containment has been managed very well, and the cases have been rather in low hundreds in most of these cities that we focus on, except for Chengdu and Chongqing, where it reached some 600 cases, and there is still a couple of existing cases. So all in all, it has been well managed. We see the vaccination rate in China is ongoing very fast. Roughly 23% of population has been vaccinated in these cities, and it is reaching millions of people. So there's millions of people that have been vaccinated and received their vaccinations. There is quite an innovative approach to vaccination process as such. Colleagues report that there are mobile vehicles that sort of move around cities and they vaccinate in various locations. So one vehicle can carry up to 3,000 vaccines, and they can vaccinate up to 70 people per hour. So it's quite innovative and modern approach, and this probably helps to accelerate the overall vaccination process. Similar approach was taken to the vaccination certificates, which is very digital. So population has a QR code. Every individual, every person has a QR code that sort of ensures their vaccination status. It allows them for in-country mobility. It does not prevent them from outbound mobility from China, however, depending on incoming country restriction measures. So that's also a certain way how China has effectively dealt with the situation. Currently, there is no ban on entering China from foreign country when it comes to inbound mobility. However, the 14-day mandatory quarantine is still in place. And the other challenge is that the embassies are still sort of not on track when it comes to issuing visas. So most of the business travelers continue to wait in order to enter China. Now, moving on towards the more micro kind of KPIs and more segmented and tailored to the Asian market. Our approach this year has been somewhat reverse or opposite from the previous years. So in the previous years, if you have followed the earlier releases of our annual Asian market data, you would see us talking about the tip of the iceberg. So the agents that are visible, that are known, that have a certain presence, either physical office, social media, website, and we knew that they are basically the tip of the iceberg, but we never knew how big is the iceberg beneath the surface. So this year we decided to reverse the approach and find out how big is the base. And what we have found is that there is 126,889 business entities in the 15 cities that you see on the map. So not entire China, only 15 cities that have a permission to do study abroad related business. That means study abroad consulting is part of their business license and they can do it legally. That was quite a staggering number. So we tried to dig deeper and find out whether they are all active or not. And of course, we have found that most of them are actually no longer. So roughly 20,000 of them are companies that are doing study abroad related business now, and they are operational. However, they are not exclusively agencies. So they can be immigration agents, they can be travel agents, they can be language schools, they can be testing centers. As all these areas have some natural overlaps with study abroad consulting, and normally these companies define their scope wide enough in order to have study abroad as part of their business portfolio. So it means that there might not be an agent now, however, they might become an agency tomorrow or a month from now if their business changes and they see and they develop appetite for the industry and they see growth and demand. Out of that, we have reached successfully over 4,000, either vetting their websites, their social media, and contacting them individually by phone. And we tried to reach them several times if we couldn't, in order to ensure that they do actually exist or not. And that is, in fact, that tip of the iceberg. So the transparent part of the industry is roughly 4,000 agencies. However, not all of them are equally active right now. And as you can see in the pie chart above, COVID has had a really strong impact on the market. It has, by the feedback that we have received from the screening process, we determined that roughly 50% of companies are no longer in regular contact with their clients. Another 30% have pivoted their business to new other areas, non-study abroad related, either temporarily or fully. That will depend on how the industry rebounds. And only 16% are still operating normally as an agency. So the effect has been quite strong. And as we have reported on previous webinars that we have done on China agent market, a lot of agencies have closed their doors, mostly smaller agencies and one-man shows, individual counselors, and only the big ones had enough funds to persevere and to downsize their personnel and operation to manageable levels in order to continue to operate. On the other hand, we know the Chinese market is very flexible, and as soon as there is positive stimulus in terms of students being able to travel, it's a very opportunistic industry where agencies will get established again and start to operate and pivot back for study abroad. So we are confident that the Chinese market, not only the study abroad market represented by the students who have been kept in China for over a year in order to sort of execute their career paths abroad, but also the Asian market will have a strong rebound after the COVID based on the feedback that we have collected from hundreds of these phone calls doing our annual agent update. So that's a positive sign to remain in contact with the market, either virtually, at least for the time being, or in person, and to maintain the communication channel open to rebuild as soon as the situation allows. So this would be the 10 cities macro KPIs that we have tried to synthesize for easy way to identify and digest. And as a next part, I would like to hand over to my colleague Grace, who will guide you through the 3 particular case studies. So the cities of Shenyang, Chengdu, and Hangzhou that we decided to cover in a bit more in-depth approach. So she will guide you through the market intel, through the agency profiles there, destinations, and so on. I'm just gonna check if Grace is able to receive us and to speak. So Grace, are you with us, and are you able to take over at this point?
Yes, thank you, Igor. And I think everyone can hear me well. And thanks for the macro intel of the general market update. And I'd like to give everyone a little bit context before sharing the results of our case studies. As introduced earlier,
Grace, I see that you're talking, but we cannot hear you. So I will try to mute myself, and let's give it another shot.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I think that the rest can hear me well, and I would like to continue. And as I mentioned earlier, that I would like to give a bit of context, before sharing the result of the 3 case studies. As introduced by Igor earlier, these 3 cities that we have researched on quite standard out top new tier 1 cities. We also combined with our experience and geographic factors as the cities located in north, middle, and east of China. And Igor, I think we can start with the first slide. We can begin with Shenyang. Thank you. Shenyang is the provincial capital of Liaoning province. It's located in the northeast of China. Geographically close to and also internationally connected to other Asian countries. The population of Shenyang is over 8 million. Machinery used to be the main industry in Shenyang. However, there's a declining demand recent years as China is moving on to other higher level industries, which leads to a lower, comparatively lower GDP over here. Due to the high population and number of students, there is an increasing need of the international education market. Normally, we refer the Heilongjiang province, Jilin province, and also Shenyang province as the 3 eastern provinces in China. As you can see, the map in the middle. Compared to the other 2, Liaoning province and its capital Shenyang has more active agencies and more opportunity when it comes to international programs and not limited only to Asian destinations. Same as the other cities we will cover later on. There are international airport, high-speed trains, and also subways available. Overseas educators, they can visit the nearby cities such as Dalian, Harbin, or Changchun when traveling to Shenyang. When it comes to study abroad agencies, there are over 3,000 companies registered with permission to run study abroad related business. According to our in-house data, out of the 414 agencies that we reached, 14% of them, which is 58 agencies, still active and operating as usual. And 35% of the agencies no longer have related business, which means either they may change to a totally different industry, or they may focus on domestic programs because of COVID. And half of them actually right now are out of contact. As for the higher education institutions, there are 29 universities and 20 colleges in Shenyang, and most of them have international programs, where overseas institutions could consider university-level cooperation, such as joint diploma or dual degree. And next slide, please. Thank you. Over here, we have top 10 agencies based on the agency's size, credential, and their market share. And from the samples, we have reached the top destinations of the agencies are still US, Australia, Canada, UK, and Japan. One thing actually stands out is that, as we have mentioned earlier, Shenyang is relatively closer to other Asian countries. And so Japan over here is much popular in Shenyang with its lower cost programs compared to other destinations. As for the program types, almost all the agencies that we reached are promoting higher education programs. 30% also have K-12 programs, almost the same as short-term programs. We also have top 6 universities with international programs for potential cooperation, just as references. The top 3 nearby cities are all reachable by train within 4 hours. When educators visit Shenyang, you should also consider to include extra time and budgets, as there are accumulated over 100 agencies in those 3 cities. We would also like to share some experience when communicating with those agencies in Shenyang, as they normally have less chances to attend events or fairs, so they are especially eager to participate and would appreciate to meet with new partners or delegates, and cost-efficient programs would interest them the most. And moving on, we have Chengdu as our second case study city. The provincial is the provincial capital of Sichuan province. I believe is no stranger to quite many educators, as tourism is their main industry, and they are friendly city to around 40 cities all over the world. Because of the encouraging policies, you may come across with more foreigners spread in Chengdu compared to Shenyang or Hangzhou. Students and parents over there are also more welcoming to international programs with less culture shock. From the map in the middle, you can tell Chengdu is actually located in the middle of China. The nearby cities over here is Nanchang, Kunming, and Guiyang. There are actually more companies registered with permission to run study abroad business in Chengdu. Out of the 427 that we have reached, 20% of them are still active, which is the highest proportion among 3 cities, as we believe agencies in Chengdu normally have a stable student source, and the market over there has got less impact by COVID. Similarly, half of them are out of contact, and over 30% no longer have related business. Compared to Shenyang and Hangzhou, there are also more higher education institutions in Chengdu. Half of them are universities and half of them are colleges. And next slide, please. On the next part, we also have the top agencies and universities listed over here. And from the chart on the right side, we could notice that there's a higher demand for UK as the top destination compared to other cities, which is actually in line with the trend of general China market right now. As for the type of programs, we can see agencies in Chengdu are more willing to promote diverse programs, not only focus on higher education, but also on K-12 and short-term programs. The nearby cities are also reachable by 2 hours flight. It's worth to connect if you ever visiting Chengdu. Agencies in Chengdu are mostly mature, experienced, when working with overseas partners based on our experience. Well, some of you probably noticed that we didn't include Chongqing over here as the nearby city. It's also one of the major new tier 1 market where we think educators should consider to develop separately. And lastly, I think we have Hangzhou. It's a provincial capital of Zhejiang province. It's located in the east of China. And it's the e-commerce center. Quite many large enterprises headquartered over here, such as Alibaba. Geographically, Hangzhou is quite close to Shanghai and other new tier 1 cities, such as Nanning, Ningbo, and Jiaxing. Hangzhou actually is one of the first bunch of cities open to globalization. Due to above mentioned facts, there are less companies in international industry, yet quite many still active. There's the highest percentage on agencies that are out of contact. We think that's mainly because the agencies at Hangzhou are normally newly established. The market is still new and is not as stable as the others. Out of the 48 higher education institutions, also more than half of them are promoting international programs. And moving on, the next slide, we also have top agencies, universities, and nearby cities listed over here. I think what's worth to mention is that even though the top destinations are quite similar to other cities, but the Hangzhou agencies actually have less interest on K-12 programs, where we think related programs providers could consider to put more energy in other cities instead. And next slide, when we combine the results of the 3 cities and check the agencies' focus, we noticed that most of the agencies are actually small-sized agencies, which means you probably can expect almost 8 out of the 10 agencies in these cities only have 1 office, and no more than 1 would consider as big agency. But however, in reality, when we check the number of offices, the middle-sized and the big-sized agencies have roughly equal coverage with smaller ones, which means the market share for mid-sized plus big-sized agencies and market share for small-sized agencies is almost 50-50. And there are quite many big agencies in these cities, such as Shenyang in Hangzhou and also Huayin in Chengdu. And if we can see the chart in the middle, as mentioned earlier, what's to mention is that due to the favorable policies, parents in Chengdu are more willing and open to send their kids abroad in a rather younger age. Therefore, the percentage of K-12 programs is relatively higher than other cities. Also, on the right hand, as showed before, almost all the agencies are promoting higher education programs right now. And when we research on the years of experience, we notice a couple of milestones in the last 30 years. During 1997 and 1998, the return of Hong Kong and Macau provided more opportunity for international business. And the second peak happened when 2008 Beijing Olympic Games being held, which opened up to visitors from all over the world and promotes the development of international education. And we can see that in 2015, when the Belt and the Road policy was carried out, the action again accelerated China's globalization, and the market was booming, and there wasn't enough agencies back then, and in the market also because of the regulated policy. And after 2017, when the agent market investment policy removed and the agencies got deregulated, more agencies entered the market fastly. Of course, we can also see that there's an impact of COVID in 2020. And our next slide, when we collecting the info from the agencies, we can also ask for, we will also ask for their opinion towards to online programs. Actually, only 23% of the agencies were promoting it, while most of them consider it as a temporal alternative. Agencies, we think, are more general optimistic about the traditional market. Among the agencies who already have experience in online programs, majority actually coming from Hangzhou. We think that's because it's related to the fact that internet industry is the new economic growth pointing in Hangzhou. As for the student sending numbers, it's not hard to tell that most of the agencies only sent less than 30 students last year due to the pandemic. Yet there are also 26% of the agencies sent over 50 students. Of course, there are mainly mid to big size agencies, and they secured this number by combining the online plus in-campus programs, where students can get enrolled right now, and they can study online, and later on they can study in campus when the traveling resumes. When it comes to the study destinations, we can see US is still strong, but it actually suffered because of COVID and beneficial policies last year. On the other hand, UK has increased requests, even has already taken US demand and booking. But we believe there's also sleeping demand for US market. It might back to top once situation gets better. Meanwhile, we can see that Australia and New Zealand, which used to be quite promising destinations, also suffered because of the travel ban, which is still in place right now. As for the rest destinations, they are currently crawling up to and also stealing the market share, such as Asian and European destinations. Students right now no longer only narrow themselves on English-speaking countries. On the right hand, we actually also talked with quite many agencies. We also have collected their feedback about the expectation of the market. Some actually mentioned there's an increasing inquiry since Q3 2020, and they expect to send students already this fall. And also, meanwhile, some agencies are looking forward to participate offline fairs or events already. Actually, by communicating with the agencies, we gained this important market intel, and it's recommended over here that the educators can do the same and to develop and also maintain a relationship with the agencies to learn more from the in-field knowledge. And thank you. I think I will pass back to Igor for the rest of the part.
Thank you, Grace. I can confirm that I actually could hear you. So it was a very quick fix for me just to turn up my volume, but sorry for being out of sync at the beginning. In order for me to sort of wrap it up and conclude, I think it has been a very useful in-depth look at the 3 case studies that we have featured, and they will be followed by more, and to sort of compare the cities on a like-to-like basis where there seem to be certain standout features that make them more unique. Like we saw that Chengdu is more open to sort of foreign engagement and study abroad. Shenyang agents are, on the other hand, keen to meet at various events because they get less attraction from overseas educators. So these are all quite viable and interesting features that are useful to consider when determining cities and approach where to develop new partners. And I'd like to wrap it up also to comment just briefly on the results of our second poll. The most preferred methods of sourcing new agent partners seem to be meeting agents at trade missions, and it is pretty much on par with word of mouth recommendations from partners. So these 2 channels seem to be the strongest as based on feedback from the audience, followed by building up relationships through assistance of local in-field specialists, and social media seem to be the weakest in this direction. So I would like to conclude the presentation, and first of all, to thank to those who have stayed up until now. I just have 2 quick announcements, and then we can proceed to questions if there are. The first announcement is that we would like to continue with the series of these city reports. Today was basically the macro KPIs about the 10 cities that we want to cover in more depth. And you could see the 3 case studies that will be featured also in a standalone city report format. And we plan to release more. So the remaining 7 cities that we have selected for this year, probably on monthly basis. So stay tuned, and you will learn about the new releases through our social media, through our website, and through our regular industry newsletters. So please feel free to subscribe and to follow our social media, BONARD events, and you will learn when the new releases will come. They will be complementary market intelligence. So we simply want to share the years of experience we have accumulated working in the field in these cities. The second announcement I am particularly proud of is that over the years we have received much of a demand coming from industry stakeholders, partners, clients, for continuation of our agent recruitment services in China. And oftentimes educators are not able to sort of get on board to sufficient numbers of attendees to participate in trade missions in China, for example. And we wanted to come up with a solution and a certain platform for all the educators, and therefore we decided that we will launch a BONARD China trade mission this year. It will be so-called new tier 1 trade mission. So we will focus it exclusively on selecting agents from new tier 1 cities. Some of them we have covered today. It will be the first event will be held on November 8th to 9th. So it will be a 2-day virtual event, as we anticipate travel will be still rather restricted, either on the side of Chinese authorities or on the side of sending institutions. And therefore we think it's better to opt for virtual format this year. But we plan to continue with in-person format as of next year, either on annual basis or twice a year, we will see. And we will rotate the location of each trade mission in China among these new tier 1 cities. So our intention is to maintain the level of quality we have been delivering, and some of you have come to experience as part of the association trade missions that we have proudly delivered and will continue to deliver as supplier to associations. And we will not seek out to recruit individual members of associations and to compete in any way. We simply want to extend another platform, another quality platform for quality educators and agents to meet in a format that we are used to and good at executing. So smaller format, 15 to 20 educators, 40 to 50 quality handpicked and individually screened agencies in the process, one-on-one selective meetings upfront through convenient platforms, executives and decision makers from agencies only. As this has been our recipe for quality events in the past, and we would like to continue with the service in the future. So for now, we will only focus on China. As you can see, there is many of agents to work with and to build relationships with. So hopefully this will become another interesting platform for educators to consider and to leverage. So we welcome everybody to talk to us about this initiative, but also in general, for any questions that you might have in terms of your future approach, goals, challenges, strategies in the market. We are here for you, and our team of experienced in-country consultants, recruiters, marketers, researchers, event managers who are certified will be happy to assist and to find a best and cost-effective way forward for your institutional needs. So thank you for your attention and for considering us, and perhaps let's give some space to any questions that might have come across in the meantime. Grace, did you have a chance to look at some of the questions?
Yes, Igor, I think to answer Harriet on the insights of agencies, which destinations they want to work with, I think the short answer is yes. We have been monitoring the agencies, especially the active ones, with their demand and requests, and also their portfolios, which destinations they are promoting, and the increasing need from them. Well, actually not from them, but from their clients, which will be the students. As we just showed earlier on the slides, there's an increasing number there's increasing demand on UK, as well as Asian countries and also European countries. This is something that we have been always monitoring, and we don't have specifically on each destination in all, but on the most popular ones, I would say.
Thank you, Grace. I'm happy to take the next one, which says, how much do potential Chinese students follow the geopolitical situation in respect to UK or Australian Chinese relationships? How much does it influence decision-making, if at all? I would lie if I would say it does not influence decision-making. Chinese parents and students are perceptive of what's happening on the geopolitical stage, whether through the domestic media, which offer own perspective, or through international media, which offer their perspective. So it's always a mix of decision-making factors. However, what we have learned in our years of experience is that Chinese students and parents are rather pragmatic And as long as there is reasonable and safe environment to travel between China and, let's say, Australia or UK or Canada or US, they will seek out to study abroad, because that is the overarching purpose for them. The quality of international education still largely exceeds the quality or the means of attaining such a high standard education in China, even though Chinese universities have gone leaps and bounds in improving their ratings and their competitiveness. However, there is just not enough supply to satisfy such a high demand in China. And therefore, Chinese students will continue to travel abroad no matter what, as long as the relationships between the countries remain at a reasonable level. Grace, perhaps another one for you. Susanna is asking, you mentioned that China is open for travel, but do you have any more information when students can apply for students' visas to China? So inbound students to China.
That's actually quite good question. And honestly speaking, that we are also checking the related policies from the embassies on regular basis. And right now we don't have a quite accurate answer to that. We always need to keep up to date with the policies. And because the COVID situation is not still not stable worldwide, and so therefore we still need to wait and see if there's when situation gets better, and if there's more beneficial policies from the embassies.
Thank you. There is one more similar question from probably chat. And the question says, I've heard that it is not possible to have foreign visitors coming to China. However, we indicated in our presentation that there is no travel restriction other than to quarantine. Where can we find more information? Yes, it is so that there is no official travel restriction. And maybe this is the part that is a bit less transparent at the moment when it comes to the status of visa issuance by the embassies, because embassies do not officially restrict visa applications. However, we know that they are also not issuing visa approvals actively, and this way they basically somehow maintain the current state of inbound travel to China. So there has not yet been official proclamations, as far as I know. Grace, you can correct me if I'm wrong, when this would change, and most likely the change will come based on how the other countries implement vaccination programs domestically, the COVID passes of certain international standard that will be a sufficient sign for Chinese embassies to start actively processing visa applications for business travelers, for example, or students' visa into China. So the rest of the world needs to catch up. And then we believe that the measures and the practical approach will change, and we will see visa approvals. So our recommendation is follow the news and statements of the local Chinese embassies in your respective countries, or feel free to reach out to us and we can provide sort of more customized intelligence in this regard. Okay. Grace, I believe we will need to wrap up. I will see our participants are gradually disconnecting, and I know we are through the hour. So we are happy to address all the remaining questions on the individual basis. We will follow up with you by email, and we will have your question covered that way. So don't worry, you'll be able to hear from us and get our response. Lastly, I want to thank you one more time for making the time for this session. This has been our third annual Asian market update, and we look forward to continue into subsequent years. We look forward to bring new initiatives and market intelligence, as we have announced, with further releases of the market reports as well as the new Tier 1 city trade mission that we plan later in the year. So feel free to consider these intelligence and opportunities to engage with agent partners, and we would be happy to guide you through that process. And feel free to reach out. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of the day. We look forward to staying in touch.